right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Grateful Redhead podcast. I'm Angie Ringler, your Grateful Dead loving host. And today I have a special episode because I'm really concerned about what I'm seeing in the news, what I'm hearing, even when I talk to some of my friends and other business owners about how we're not really able to connect lately. And I know you're feeling it, right? The world seems divided. Our nation seems divided now more than ever. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with we're just not hearing each other. We're just not really understanding the words that we're saying to other people, what they're saying to us, and understanding their true meaning. So today I wanted to bring in somebody that means a lot to me. And I feel like she's got a lot to offer to this conversation of communication. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So if you haven't listened to an episode, I'm glad that you're here today to be able to do so. And really what my goal is to get the stories out there. Storytelling has such an amazing power that we can share ideas with each other and that we can understand how we're all maneuvering through life trying to get things done. For me, it's really about, the planet and being kind to each other and what that looks like from other people. But how are we doing that? How can we learn from each other in how we're doing that? And that's what I like to focus on this podcast. It's the whole reason I put it together is because stories have power and I want to be able to share those stories with myself. I want to learn what these people are doing out there. And then I want to be able to share it with you as well. So I appreciate you taking time to listen to our podcast today. So I'm sure you've said something to a friend or a neighbor or family member, this idea that you had, a moment that you heard that you wanted to share, and you kind of get that glazed over look in their eye. Clearly, there's a lack of, connection there in what you said. You probably find it really frustrating when you say something and people just don't understand the point that you're trying to get across. We're all feeling a little bit disconnected right now, social distancing, how we're communicating. I mean, you guys are probably a lot like me. We're doing tons of video calls all the time. It's really hard for me. I'm a hugger by nature. I really miss hugging people. So those are kind of ways that we're not really being able to communicate in the ways that we might have been used to in the past. Now, if you can relate to anything I just said, then you are listening to the right episode today, because my guest, Claudia Jean Verga, has really got this system down, and she's going to turn us into communication rock stars where we're going to have the opportunity to create those deeper connections with each other that I feel that we're really lacking right now. Now, I'm more honored to say that Claudia is my friend, but I really want to highlight some of her accomplishments. I mean, she's done TEDx coaching. She's done in addition to appearing on TEDx herself, she's a curator and a coach for them. She's been recognized in national magazines. She's even done corporate training for like United Way and YMCA. Like, she knows what she's talking about when it comes to getting people to understand how to communicate with each other within organizations, but then also taking it on a larger scale. Now, great credentials, right? But more importantly, this girl knows how to have fun. And I am firsthand experience to that. When she's not working, she's either got her foot on the pedal of her motorcycle or she's got 2 feet on the dance floor because she loves her some salsa dancing, or she's spending time with her amazing family. I think 8 kids now. Oh my gosh. And the dog. Don't forget Jasper, because he's an important part of the family too. So really, I want you guys to enjoy this conversation as much as I'm going to today. And joining me from New Bern, North Carolina, it is my great friend, author, dancing machine, Claudia Jean Verga. So take it away, Claudia. Tell us about what you do and who you are.
Well, Angie, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I know we'll have a good time and hopefully share some information that will help people out in our current social environments.
Definitely.
Where would you like to start?
Well, to me, I feel like the important reason for you being here today is because of the division that we're having in our, let's, even if we narrow it down just to our nation, right? That we're just not understanding where we want to be. We're not understanding how to talk to each other and the importance of listening. I feel like maybe social media and the prevalence of the internet, it's a lot of, getting your getting what you want to say out there, pushing your comments, pushing your likes, pushing your videos, like whatever it is, we're pushing our information out there. And I wonder if that's reducing the way that we listen to people. And maybe that's part of the reason that we're struggling with our communication. But maybe with your, you developed the chat communication system, which I love. I've attended your class before, your workshop on it. And you wrote a great book on communication, which, by the way, towards the end, I do want people to learn about where they can, connect with you on those levels as well. But right now, maybe you could share a little bit of, are we not listening enough? Are we not speaking in the right words? Why do you feel that we're not communicating that well as more of a nation?
Wow, and we're going to tackle all this in 30 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Where
I
is
mean,
my
I just want you here today to solve the world's problems, Claudia. That's
okay?
all
All
I
right.
want you here for today.
Can we pause for a moment? I'm going to go get my cape. I'll be right back. No,
Awesome, awesome.
but and it's so funny. I once somebody told me that when we are under a lot of pressure or a lot of stress or a lot of emotions, that we tend to go to our extremes of our personalities. And so what I feel like we're seeing right now, because we are in our, political climate, the social climate, the social distancing, the year later, we're still in Corona, right? Coronavirus and the pandemic. And so what we're seeing is people really at the extremes, right? Because we've been dealing with this for over a year now, not to mention a long time. We've been dealing with this for a long time, but it's all starting to bubble up because people are at their extremes. The unfortunate thing
Right.
is that you and I don't have the same backgrounds, right? We didn't go to the same schools, we don't have the same parents, we didn't have the same experiences. So how words land for you, they could show up differently for me. And what happens is, in my opinion, when we're at these extremes in these circumstances, is where we tend to see the miscommunication. And the reason being is a lot of people, if you look at when I look on social media and I see a response to a post and I'm like, whoa, that was completely emotional. There's back in the day before there was social media, Facebook or LinkedIn or any of these excellent tools that we have out there that help us get news out faster, but it also comes with a consequence, right? So it's a knee jerk reaction. You said something, I immediately had a response. That response is only a chemical reaction in my body. I type something, I hit enter, and out in cyberspace it is for the rest of eternity. And so what we're missing now is that pause in between receiving information, processing that information, emotionally going through it, and then coming to a point where we can talk from it. And what we have to do is we have the two extremes, right? And we have to find our neutral points in order to have these conversations that we need to have in order to see change. If somebody's raising volume or getting more upset in a social response, I know that they feel like they're not being heard, because we only raise our
Right.
volume or repeat over and over and over again when we feel like the person that we're saying to it isn't hearing us. And in my opinion, not necessarily everybody's truth.
No, you're right. And we can't get tonality through. Like try to get tonality or sarcasm through on a text, not a good idea.
Yeah. Well, the problem with the tech, any communication of that nature is that the end user gets to decide what kind of mood you're in, right? I can send
Right.
you a text message and I could be like, la da da dee da, it's roses and, unicorns and rainbows. And on your end, you might not be having such a great day and it's coming in as text and you're like, how dare she? You're reading it in a
Right.
complete different voice than what is actually being sent. So really face to face, communication is really essential. People said to me when I first named my communication system chat, they're like, why are you naming it chat? Like, I got so much negativity towards that. And when you talk at somebody, that's it. You're talking at them, right? But when you chat, that's an intimate conversation. That's a two-way back and forth. And so I felt like it was really fitting to what I was looking to create as a communication tool.
Yeah, that's important that you say that because I always feel too, even when I like text somebody, I'm like, hey, can you chat? As opposed to like, hey, can you talk? Like that feels much more serious or like, I don't know. I just like that term chat. So I'm glad that you said that and went with that as well. It feels softer and more approachable.
Right. Well, think about any time somebody said to you, "Can we talk?" It usually was followed by bad news, right?
Well, yeah, good point. We don't need that, that's for sure.
Can we
So
talk?
share with, without giving your whole class away, right, on the podcast, the idea is that you kind of showcase the different personalities that we have when we hear words. Can you touch a little bit upon that?
Sure. And I actually, there are great tools out there for personality assessments and things like that. And what chat really focuses on is the communication styles. So it's a little bit different. But chat is an acronym for the four communication styles. And I believe that everybody already has all four styles within them. How you line them up in order is your communication language. So, Angie, we have a primary and a secondary that I say is our comfort zone. These are the people that we surround ourselves with. These are the people that we love. And the reason we love them so much is because they talk and communicate just like we do, right? And then we have what I
Right.
call the third, which is the pivot. Now, if you think in basketball, a pivot, you could pivot to the left or you could pivot to the right. So your pivot is, let's say if it's action, which I'll tell you what the acronym means, but say your action, well, that means sometimes you're ready to go, and then sometimes you could just, it goes into second position, and then sometimes you just want to lay on the couch and eat bonbons, and it falls into your fourth position, right? And then we have what I call the biggest opportunity for growth is number four. And the reason I tell you this is usually the person that walks into the room that makes you want to look busy or you're trying to avoid eye contact with, that's usually the person that's your biggest opportunity for growth. That's your least favorite communication style. So we try to avoid those people because that's just not comfortable for us. It's not where we like to be.
Right. That's the uncomfortable conversations that we feel like we're going to have.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you know what? Every time I'm around Aunt Susie, she always makes me feel like I'm being judged. Aunt Susie is probably your fourth communication style that you prefer not to be to engage in as much. But ironically, I tell people usually your fourth communication style, your biggest opportunity for growth, is also the reason that sometimes we don't achieve things professionally and personally because it gets in the way. So, for example,
It's
I'll give you
uncomfortable.
it's uncomfortable. Yeah. I hate rules and regulations, right? I hate rules. I think things are stupid. And it like at first I thought a business plan was like crazy, not made up numbers. Like, I don't understand why I need this for me, my communication style. Well, guess what? My business wasn't successful because I didn't have a business plan. So once I embraced my business plan, then I started to see my business take off in a different way. And in the networking world or just in community, right? If you think about one person and what they say, the numbers are behind every one person. Well, it used to be this. Now with social media and the internet, it's probably changed. But it used to be behind every one person stands 100 people. And behind 100 people is 100 people. So that could be your next business partner, your next business opportunity, your next friend, your next best friend, the love of your life, your neighbor,
Right.
or there's so many, and that's why I call it the biggest opportunity. So I'll briefly you want to know what chat means? Should I tell them?
Of course. I want everybody to know. I loved when I took the class. It was great. I think it's
Okay.
so enlightening. And for anybody that's listening to hear, like, yes, pay close attention to this because it is really interesting. And it helped me to be able to communicate with people so much better, especially once you understand your own, where you fit into that own chat, into your own CHAT.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the fun part, Andy. For your listeners, we'll give them a way to take the assessment complimentary if they're interested at the end of our time
Oh,
together.
thanks, girl. I appreciate that. That's really super.
Of course, of course. So chat. So it is an acronym for the four communication styles, and the C is the creative. So these are the people who have the ability to see big picture, and they I want you to think about like Michelangelo, right? He walked up, he saw a marble slab and told everybody there was an angel trapped in there, and immediately started chiseling. And at the end, I mean, I would have looked at the marble slab and said, "Wow, there's a marble slab." I mean, so they have the ability to see beyond what beyond. They get to see the bigger picture. I want you to think of people like Walt Disney. When he thought about, all this land in Florida that was considered swampland, I'm going to build the biggest, place for families to come and gather. And often they ask a lot of why questions. And of course, Angie, I'm just going to scratch the surface to make everybody dangerous today. That's what's going to happen. But if they want to learn more, they can come and hang out with me. But we are going to make them dangerous with scratching the surface. So creatives actually, they want to ask a lot of why questions, and they believe there's a solution for every problem. Now, the harmony communication styles, they want everybody to get along. They want everybody to really get along and to prosper as a community. And they really care about our earth. And hint, hint, they love to hug. So what we're seeing right now, right? They love to hug. So if we talk about the current pandemic with the social distancing and everything else, at first Zoom was fun for them because they got to see their friends and maybe have a virtual cocktail and connect with people. But now they're really suffering. They're suffering. They're missing that interaction, that physical touch with people. And this is what's pushing them to their extremes. So we're starting to see some of that breakdown. Now, if I back up to the creatives they usually are introverted and tend to like to spend time alone. And what we're seeing from them during this pandemic, especially in my speaking world, is and conferences, we're seeing more of them because they don't have to do the social interacting. So in an online conference, they can come in and sit in the back, gain knowledge, not have to do the people thing that they're not crazy about. And so they're kind of enjoying the break from not having to be forced into society all the time, right? So harmony people, they're really struggling right now. They need that connection. They're really needing the people time. They usually have really quirky sense of humor, and as they're telling you a joke, they'll start laughing about it before they even get out the punchline, even though they delivered the joke like 15 times before, right? So it might look something like that. It might sound like something like this. So Angie, if seagulls fly over the sea, what flies over the bed? This is so good. What, Angie?
Gee, I never heard that one before. Could it be a bagel?
Yes. And so you know that you're dealing with somebody who has the harmony communication style. If you're in person with them, they'll try to reach out and connect with you. They'll touch your hand as they're talking. They'll touch your shoulder. They'll want to hug you, or they'll double handshake hug you. So they're really into connection, connecting people, connecting the community, making sure they're natural born cheerleaders. They want to see everybody win. And sometimes they say yes when they should say no, and they get some burnout. So that's the harmony communication style.
All the creatives in the harmonies are like, oh my God, that's so me.
Well, it's so funny because people always say to me at the end when I'm done teaching class or something, and they're like, I'm all for it. And I'm like, I told you that in the beginning, you're all for. And here's the beauty of it. Unlike my system, I believe that you're all for communication styles already within you. And I don't believe in pigeonholing people. I believe that through experiences and self-development, this is like any other muscle. If you want a six-pack, you eat right, you go to the gym. If you want to be a communication rock star, you will study this over and over and over again and learn how to become fluent between all four communication styles. And that no matter who you talk to, they feel like that was a really great conversation and that they were heard. See, when I'm talking with somebody who leads with the harmony communication style, I want to connect with them. I don't want to get right to the point. I don't want to give them the rules and regulations. I don't want to give them the big picture. That's not what matters to them. So when we start meeting people where they are is where we start to see the change. And I'll go back to that. We'll go back to that in a minute. But let's move on. So we have the action communication style, because these people are like, get to the point already. This is too long, right? And these are the movers and shakers. These are the people that go by their gut reaction. We're 10 minutes into this and they're looking at their watch like, let's go. Right?
Those are the people listening right now that were saying, is this still going on, this conversation? I thought they were going to tell me about a free assessment.
Yes, it's pretty much exactly. And they're able to see opportunities. They're they see an opportunity right away. They follow their gut. And we need this type of person. Otherwise, we'd all be sitting around in procrastination, right? And we need those movers and shakers
Right.
out there. These are the Tony Robbins of the world. And for people who don't know Tony Robbins, he's a motivational speaker who I have personally sat in an auditorium with 30,000 people from all over the world, and he got us all to walk across hot coals barefoot. So they come with passion. Action people are very passion driven,
Uh,
right? But we need them. We need them to spread words about good opportunities. We need them for sponsorships and non-for-profits, like to go out and get people interested in what we're doing. And everybody plays a really important part.
right.
And that's why it's so essential that we learn how to communicate with each other. Sometimes the action style there, they could be inappropriate with their jokes sometimes. So that you know, they might say something shocking. So they're all about the shock factor. They have a great sense of adventure, and they love adrenaline, things that are driven by adrenaline, right? And it's so funny because right now I'm watching them during this pandemic, and you know, people are saying, "Oh, you know, wear your mask, wear your mask," and their biggest thing is freedom. And so for them, they're like, "I don't want to wear my mask. You can't make me wear my mask," you know. And this is some of the behavior that we're seeing. What right, wrong, whatever your opinion of it is that your opinion. But for these people being quarantined, told with curfews, and they can't go here, and they can't do this, and they can't be with people, and they have to wear the mask, is all the things that they don't like. So they're really suffering too, right? So you got the harmony people who can no longer touch humans. You have these people that feel all their rules, they're being forced into all these rules and regulations which interferes with their biggest thing, which is their sense of freedom, right? And then you have, last but not least, the
Right.
template communication style. And the template communication styles, what do you think about Judge Judy, right? And Judge Judy, it's all black and white. You did or you didn't, right? It's either wrong or it's right. And they really like things to be professional, and they like the rules and regulations, and they like all these things that are coming down in quarantine. And the reason being is safety and security is their most important thing. So what's happening is they want the mask mandates, and they want these, quarantine things, and they have all these rules and all these systems in place because that's what makes them feel safe. So what happens is we get this natural budding, right? They have the template people who want these rules,
Yeah.
and that makes them feel safe, and then you have the action people who are like, you're infringing on my freedom. And so there's this conflict within our society just from a pandemic, from our communication styles alone. The harmony people are starving.
Right. We're seeing that everywhere. Yeah, you're so right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what's happening is, as we're getting further and further and longer, and this is, you know, still staying around longer and longer, we're getting farther and farther to our extremes, and there's lower tolerance for coming to neutral to have conversations that make win-wins. That's what we're seeing right now. Because I tell people, think about it. If you're in a good state of mind, Angie, if you just won the lottery, are you going to make good choices right now? You're in your excitement. You're like, yes, I'm going to go buy a car. I'm going to go pay off my mom's house, right? Like all that adrenaline's
I'm gonna
going,
make what feel like good decisions. They're gonna
right?
feel like good decisions.
And then maybe like a couple months later, you'll be
They're
like,
probably not
"Hmm,
gonna
maybe I shouldn't have done
be.
that."
Yeah, why did
And
I do that? Right.
yeah. And so emotions, whether they're good, bad, angry, sad, impact how we make decisions and how we communicate. So when we come from those, and when we can come back to a place of neutral, that's when actual conversations that can happen, that can change. Right now, we see a lot of conversations of people standing on opposite sides using their volume to be heard instead of coming to a place, taking a few breaths, right? Getting to that neutral zone and being curious. When you were a child, weren't you curious? I mean, we picked up things. I shoved things in my ears, my nose. I mean, I was curious about everything. And now, as we get as adults, we're not so curious anymore.
Yeah, we feel like, we kind of know it, been there, done that. Let's, let me force my thought on you right now instead of listening so much. So,
Yeah.
you made good points. I think the first thing that people need to realize, which I found most valuable, was that there is these four different languages, right? It's the creative, the harmony, the action, and the template. So that's a really good starting point, that if somebody didn't even realize that there's these different ways of talking, these different ways that we, use language and understand language, how do we come to that neutral point with people? How do we set ourselves at neutral, like you said?
Yeah. And listen, even if you're not trained in chat, you still can hear. And I always tell people, well, usually listening to respond is listening. You're talking and I'm thinking about what I'm going to say before you finish, and I didn't hear anything you said, right? So that's listening to what I call listening to respond. But listening to hear, to actually show up and come from a place of from your heart, right? From being at here, H, heart, right? And you're going to show up in a place where you're going to hear with your heart. You're going to be open to a conversation. E, you're going to have empathy or understanding. A, you're going to show up authentically, right? And R, we're going to be respectful. So it's about really hearing what somebody's saying and letting you say, so hearing what you're saying, and then I say to you, this is called active listening in the world of training, right? Communication training. So say you said whatever you said, and I say, okay, Angie, and I listen intently. I'm completely with you. I'm not checking my phone. I'm not thinking about anything. And I say, Angie, this is what I heard you say. I heard you say A, B, or C. Angie, is that correct? And then you say, yeah, or no, that's not what I meant. And then you clarify, well, Angie, could you clarify that? Right? And then you go and clarify that, and then I repeat it back to you. So is this what you meant? Then you say yes. Okay, Angie, you have anything else to add to that? You say no. And then I then say, okay, so here's this is how it impacted me. So we stick to I am our own I statements, right? I always tell people we get in trouble when we start speaking for the masses because because unless you have their permission to speak on their behalf, nobody wants to be spoken for, right? And so we have to stick to our own
Correct.
issues, itch your own itches, right? And the only person that you can actually itch those with, that I use the example of, if your power went out, Angie, would you go to Macy's to have the power turned back on? No,
No.
because Macy's can't turn your power back on. Only the utility company.
Right.
So in short, the only person who can turn your power back on, right? Because when we have a conversation and there's an argument, we lose our power, right? We give our power away when we feel like there's nothing we can do or anything like that, right? So what I can do is I can go to Angie and say, Angie, when you said this the other day, this is how I interpreted it. Is that how you meant? I can't go to Macy's and say, you know what, when Angie said that, this is how, and because Macy's can't help me. So the only person that can help me is coming to you and coming from a place of neutrality and then being curious and listening. When was the last time? Have you ever felt like somebody truly listened to you?
Probably you right now.
But you see, you can name the person who you feel that truly listens to you because it happens a little like
Right.
in today's society, in my opinion, it happens so little nowadays where we're actually really listening to understand, to be curious. And it's the biggest gift you
Well,
can give
and
somebody.
I think what you were saying too is that, like, what you were just gave that example of was a conversation. It is chatting with people, right? That kind of back and forth, like listening and saying, "Oh, I just heard you say ABC. Is that what you meant? Oh, no, this is what I meant." Or, yes, exactly. And then it becomes this, like tennis, right? Like conversational tennis, to where I don't feel like we have that anymore. It's like, boom, here, take this, take that. And we're not really having a lot of that back and forth. So I like that idea. I like what you said about listening, taking that time to really focus in on what people are saying. And that, I feel, is maybe where we go awry these days, getting ready. What was the word that you used when you're thinking about what your answer is? What you called it?
Listening to respond.
Listening to respond, right? I feel like a lot of people listen. I'm guilty of that myself. I'm not even saying other. I can only speak for I, right? I can only say I
It's
am
your own
guilty of
itches.
that. Yes, not speaking for the masses. I'm learning today here, people. I am learning here. Um, but that's somehow hard to do. I feel like, in a way, that's a habit that we've developed over time as my listening skills have faded, and I am working on making them better. I don't want it to be one-sided. I want to get back to conversations that we have with people and really listening to what it is that we are all doing, because we have so much greatness to share with each other, but we are not going to take it in or even see what it is if we can't slow down enough to listen to what people are sharing with us, which is, again, another reason why you're here today. I feel like what you have is a beautiful ability to share with people, even just that chat thing, just for people to be able to understand that there's different ways of language. It's not just like different languages, where I might be speaking English and you would be speaking Italian. We're not even breaking it down like that. It's a matter of we have different ways of listening and speaking. So, what else would you share with, people who are listening today that you think would be advantageous? I mean, you've given them a lot of nuggets already, and that's really great. But, what else can you share that would be valuable for them to walk away with today before they go and take the assessment?
Okay, so I have three things that come up for me. I'll be really quick about them.
No problem.
Number one, I teach, if you think about Native American culture, right? They have these things called dream catchers, and they hang them up over their beds. And at night, it's supposed to capture anything that no longer serves them, or nightmares, or any bad things. And in the morning, it's burnt off with the sun. So I tell people, take inventory before you go to bed. Be your own dream catcher. Go through your day. If there's a conversation that sticks out like a thorn, make a note of that. If you wake up in the morning and it's still bothering you, that should be the first thing on your agenda. It is to clean up that conversation. Listen, people don't know that you have a problem with them unless you tell them. I had it's so true. It's so true.
So true.
I had this amazing dance partner. I'll do this really quick because I know we're running out of time. I had this amazing dance partner named Chino, and he danced.
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay, good. I had this amazing dance partner in Latin ballroom dancing, and his name was Chino. He was like 80 years old, and he danced with his soul. I love dancing with Chino. I'd be like, I love it when he twirls me across the floor. Well, I go home, I'm telling all my friends about Chino who dances with his soul. I had a great week. I go back the next week, and Chino doesn't want to dance with me. I have no idea what happened. Finally, at the end, we're changing our shoes, from our ballroom dancing shoes back into our street shoes. And he's like, last week you hurt my feelings. I said, I did. And he said, yeah, you're telling everybody that I throw you across the room and nobody's going to want to dance with me. And I was like, oh my goodness. Yes. So in his childhood, his mother was abused by his stepdad. And in his mind, twirling across the floor was throwing aggressiveness towards women. And in his
my
other women
gosh.
didn't want to dance with him because I was saying that. And so here's where I say early, if you back up to the beginning of the show where I said we come from different backgrounds, different words, different experiences, mean different things to each of us. So in his mind, twirling meant that he was being aggressive and handsy. And in my mind, I'm thinking, like Disney princess twirling, right? And so we just had this moment of, and so when I cleared that up, and I thought, if he hadn't told me that, I would have missed out on the best opportunity from my dance partner, because we continued to dance for many, many times after that together in a different way, because we had that conversation, because he had the courage to confront me about what was going on for him. And I had, instead of getting upset or angry, came from a place of curiosity. Tell me more about that, because I didn't understand, right? Get curious. Tell me more. Because I didn't understand that this is his childhood. I'm not talking to an 80-year-old man right now. I was talking to 5-year-old Chino, who was watching his mother be assaulted by his stepfather. And when we start to look at people and recognize that we're not dealing with the person who we see, we're dealing something from their past, probably back from when they were a child, that's showing up right now, right? So be curious,
Right.
and be willing to be connected.
And that is, listen, the power of storytelling is amazing, because you just painted a perfect picture of why communication is so important and why we can't just allow ourselves to harbor those thoughts. because other people have no idea what we're thinking. I mean, honestly, and you just really shared that beautifully. Way to go, girl. I love you.
Thank you. I love
Oh,
you too. I tell people it's like holding somebody for ransom and not telling them what your demands are. And they
right,
don't even
right.
know that they don't even know. They don't even know they're being held hostage. So
Oh my
unless
God.
we have those conversations, right? And the most important part is if you're feeling angry, upset, or you're having, and I just tell people it's a chemical reaction. You're having a chemical reaction. If you can take a few breaths or come back to it from a place of neutrality, is where you can make progress. Unfortunately, when we're emotional, we tend to sometimes make it worse, right? It's like adding
Right.
fuel to the fire, right? We're throwing gasoline on something that's already burning. So just take a step back from it, take some breaths, regain that space, and then come back to the conversation with curiosity and compassion. And that's where we can start to make change. The other thing I'd like to leave them with is something that I always teach everybody. Everything is renegotiable. And I'm going to say that again. Everything is renegotiable. So, Angie, if you and I had a disagreement and we came up with a solution at the end of it, right? And then I said, and then we go off, and a week later, it's not working for me. So I come back to you and say, Angie, I know we made this agreement, but it's no longer working for me. Can we discuss a different option? So even when you say yes or no, you come to an agreement with somebody or you make a commitment and it's no longer a good commitment for you, I want people to know that everything is renegotiable at any time. And
It's
then
not
last,
set in stone. Good
not set in
point.
stone, not set in stone. And then the last thing is that, I teach this is we're all important. Everybody's important, right? If you can't have all creatives in the world, then we'd be all ideas with no forward movement. You can't have all the harmonies
No
in the world,
action. Right.
because then we everybody would be hugging and getting along, but not we wouldn't be productive in sense, right? We can't have a world filled of action people making gut decisions and running around doing whatever we want, and we can't have a world of people who are constantly laying out rules and regulations, because nothing would get done. And in essence, if you think my logo is a puzzle piece for puzzle pieces for a reason. If you take a puzzle and you dump it out on a table, it's a little overwhelming at first, right? 1,000-piece puzzle. There's all these different shapes. There's different sizes. Where do I begin? But can you finish that puzzle? Can you complete the puzzle without every piece?
No.
No. Every piece is essential in completing a puzzle,
Every piece is important.
and
Right.
so is every human. Everybody serves a purpose.
Yeah.
Nobody is better than anybody else. I don't care if you have a PhD after your name or you're a janitor. Without all those different kinds of people in our world, we would not be operating and moving forward as a society. And I believe the sooner that we can appreciate our differences and learn how to embrace what we bring to the table and figure out how to work together, we will become more productive. We will become more peaceful.
I couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you more, Claudia. In case anybody's listening to this that wants to know how do I rate on the chat system, I am a HCTA. I remember when I first took Claudia's workshop and we had to figure out what we were. And that was the first thing I realized, like, wow, I'm all of those things. But what am I really? And, I'm a tree hugger. I mean, the H came out a little, it squeaked out ahead of the C, ahead of the creative. But sometimes the creative is a little bit ahead of the harmony on some days, right? But once
Yeah.
you really think about it, you'll figure out that you do have a dominant, and then you can address what that fourth position is and know that that's where your opportunities lie in having those conversations with people that might make you a little bit uncomfortable. Claudia, this has been so
Right.
great.
And for anybody
Go ahead.
got to give a tip out for those who are listening that want to interact with you professionally, personally, or whatever. So, because Angie disclosed that she's a harmony creative, you really want to stick to making a connection first. Hug her if you got her in person; she'll love that. Give her
Yes.
the big picture. She loves big picture ideas, and stay away from
Yep.
the details because she'll immediately shut down. And that's the best way. And I promised the golden rule. Can I do that really quick? I promised the
Yep.
golden rule earlier. Okay, so we all know, well,
Yes.
you might know the golden rule, right? We treat others the way that we want to be treated. But in Angie's instance, if I wanted to say I was somebody who was action template and I like to get to the point and all the rules, and I start, blurting out directions to her, she might be a little offended by that. Would that be true? You might be like, this person's a little cold and a little rough,
That would be true.
right?
Yep.
And so
Right.
you're not really open to
Yep.
hearing what I have to say. So what I tell people is follow the platinum rule. You know what the platinum rule is, Angie?
Nope.
Talk to people the way that they want to be talked to. So that's what makes chat so awesome.
Ah.
I can figure out, oh, Angie's a harmony template, a harmony creative. I'm going to stick to making connection and big picture. And now I say, hey, Angie, how are you? Oh, my goodness. You look so wonderful. Your podcast is really making a difference in our world. Boom. I just talked your language. So now we have open dialogue, right? And so it's really about,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
not, listen, this is not for manipulation. We don't manipulate people. We're doing this because we want to make true
Right.
connections, not to deceive anybody. There's no deceit in this, other than trying to make authentic connections with each other so that we can move forward as society. Right? We're the human race.
Right.
That's it.
Right. And what's that saying that you said to me before? We're only one conversation away. What's that you say?
I always say we're one conversation away from compassion.
From compassion. Yes, I love that. Listen, that is a perfect way to round out our conversation because that's exactly why I wanted you here today. Is to realize that communication is how we're going to bring ourselves together, right? It is one conversation away from compassion. So before we wrap up the podcast, tell people where they can find you, where they can read your book, how they can connect with you, and about the assessment.
Okay. So you can find me you can go to my website, which is thechatsystem.com, and it's completely ADA compliant. So I'm very proud about that because inclusivity for all. And on there, you'll find the chat assessment for free. You just go click on the chat assessment and we'll email you your report. It's 3 questions, takes less than 2 minutes. If you want to read my book, there are links on my website to my book, but we're also on Amazon. It's Conflict and Communication by Claudia Jean Berger and Marilyn Denullen, my mentor and business partner. And I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. I think I got them all as Claudia Jean or the chat system. And it's
The
true.
chat system or Claudia Jean.
Yep, the chat system or Claudia Jean. And if they go to thechatsystem.com, they can find links to all my social media, links to the book, and links to the assessment all in one place.
Fantastic. Oh, Claudia, thank you so much. I love that you're living in North Carolina now because it's for so many amazing reasons. You really have, I'm so happy for you. Without even going into all your personal details, let's just say that this girl has come a long way, baby. So I'm glad that she's living in North Carolina now, but I'm sad that she's not living in my same town anymore. And I do miss hugging you and seeing you in person, but this has been such a delight. And I want to thank you for taking time to be on the Grateful Redhead podcast today. So everybody who's listening, if you like what you hear, please subscribe to my podcast. If you know somebody amazing like Claudia, give me the opportunity to talk to them and to share with other people what they're doing. So We're available on all the platforms that you might listen to podcasts. And until we meet again, please take care of each other and love one another and be kind to each other. Peace out.